Daniel's there again. Okay, so we're live. Welcome everybody to the Azure and AI Show. We've got three new speakers this week, and we're going to start off there with Sarah. Do you want to share your screen? We've got,
Yeah, I'm already sharing my screen. Can you guys see my screen?
yeah, 1 second there now. Here we go. We have a lot of new speakers lined up for the new year as well, so I'll be advertising them going forward. So there you go. Over to you there, so Sarah.
Sure. Uh, thanks, team. Thanks for joining. Briefly, first I will introduce myself. I've been working on software QA engineering perspective since past 25 years as a test automation architect and uh, as a test engineering perspective. So I've worked across several companies across USA and Australia. About 25 years experience I have. So I've worked across all the big companies in Australia, like Telstra, CBA, and in USA also the big companies I've worked on, uh, being the clients being like the Tiacra, Verizon, and American Express. So mostly across my career, whenever I've worked across the projects, so mostly I had to automate uh, automate the projects by understanding the whole architecture. So with my experience and knowledge, what I want to present to you guys is the grow the I worked across mobile and the web test architect automation using the front end and the back end integration of microservices APIs. So mostly what I want to present you guys is the challenges in building the automation framework and what is it like exactly the return on investments are is involved. So mostly like the traditional view, we have automation as a technical overhead, justified by time savings alone, disconnected from business metrics and QA team responsibility. And also, there's a quality-driven framework which says automation as a strategic investments. ROI is linked to defect prediction and reliability. Aligned and should be aligned with business objectives and cross-functional ownership. So my main idea is to transform these as a different view from the quality perspective. So basically, the quality-driven test automation framework has risk-based prioritization, ROI measurement, quality metrics integration, and the data-driven optimization. This framework establishes a systematic approach to test automation and moves beyond execution efficiency to demonstrate tangible business values through improved quality outcomes. So when I come to the risk-based testing design, prioritizing is what matters. So, for example, like when you're testing a software which is integrating, you're trying to prioritize which component take comes first and which components comes later, and what components are more efficient, and it should be a risk-based design which focuses on critical system components and integration points. Like what I understand is when you try to uh, test a software, first thing comes into mind is it should have zero production defects. That would add really had a big value to the team and to the company. And keeping that in mind, you have to assess your risks and make your test design. And you should make sure the prioritization ensures automation investments deliver maximum risk reduction. And also, high risk areas receive comprehensive automated coverage, while low risk components may use sampling or manual verification, and optimizing the overall cost benefit of the automation program. So these are the factors needs to be considered from the risk-based design perspective. And second thing is addressing device and the browser fragmentation. So considering the market is mostly the smartphone market nowadays, so you have to understand uh, what are the device models which are involved, and what are the browser versions which are involved to that device, and what could be the major OS versions requiring testing depends on you which uh, OS versions the consumer or the customers use mostly. So it's mostly the challenge facing mobile web systems is staggering. So the solution lies in the intelligent coverage strategies informed by analytics data. This is done by the whole business team, the business team looking at its customer statistics. So basically, we can leverage it using analytics to identify the device models, the screen sizes, the operating systems, and the version of the browsers that represent your actual user base. And build a representative test matrix covering 80 to 90% of your traffic and 20 to 30 carefully selected configurations. And also, you can employ the cloud based device farms and parallel execution to maintain rapid feedback cycles while achieving meaningful coverage across the matrix. And also keeping this in mind, there are also AI tools which are coming in, which could wipe out these uh, browsers, and they would automatically uh, install the versions and test it. And the seventh thing is the second thing is optimizing test coverage for critical user journeys. So here we involve a strategic coverage approach where the critical path identification is map user journeys, noting integration points with backend services and authentication. And second is coverage layering, implement unit integration and end-to-end tests for the comprehensive failure detection. And also scenario prioritization, creating comprehensive test suites for revenue generating workflows. And using smoke tests for secondary features to optimize execution and maintenance. And the backbone of this is uh, you should try to add your test scenarios in such a way like at the time of when the business tells you this is what I need. Parallelly in mind, you should start uh, creating your test design scenarios and end-to-end tests. I mean, it should start in parallel, not like the business tells the problem and then I should come and understand in depth and start writing my uh, value-based scenarios. So it should start in parallel. As soon as a business manager, a project manager tells him, "This is what the scenarios I have. This is what to implement." And the next moment, the conversation is happening parallelly. You should design your test coverage and critical user journeys. So that would help in strategic coverage approach. And the next slide here is connecting quality metrics to business outcomes. Like you're trying to uh, uh, create the defect density metrics, system reliability indicators, release velocity measurements, and financial performance link. But this is like mostly documenting all the outcomes, and then from the Six Sigma perspective, you're trying to uh, minimize this, and as a living density metrics, you're trying to reduce going forward, like designing the scenarios and adding most value to the return on investments on the automation. And then mostly this slide speaks about quantifying ROI, the financial case for automation. Like building a compelling ROI case for automation requires quantifying both its costs and its financial benefits. Costs such as tooling, infrastructure, initial development, and ongoing maintenance are generally straightforward to calculate. The benefits demand more sophisticated analysis, like quantifying savings from reduced manual regression testing, avoid costs from fewer production defects, and improved time to market. So these improvements translate into competitive advantage and new revenue opportunities. Like we compare the defects escape rates in production incidents before and after automation. So this linking reduces defect density to avoid costs, and present your return on investment as one-time calculation, but as not a one-time calculation, but as an ongoing metric demonstrating sustained value delivery from your automation program. And you could say the main points is for building a data-driven automation framework is establish baseline metrics, uh, define success criteria, implement measurement systems, analyze and correlate, and optimize and scale. So this again has to be dwelled in depth depending on what project and what are the requirements, and analyzing the defect rates from the collecting from uh, the previous uh, run rate as I told before in the slide number 9. And then we need to define the success criteria and implement the measurement systems, analyze and correlate. And this is this slide speaks about aligning automation strategy with business goals. Like, what exactly is a strategic alignment? So it involves revenue enablement for the ongoing projects. I mean, focus on testing features that protect for generate revenue. Like more than generating a revenue, the quality matters the most. So as I said, like it should be tested in such a way, like no production defects should exist. Not only the requirements, it's like thinking from all angles, and then having customer experience, prioritizing the customer experience, reliability and performance for the customer-facing journeys, operational efficiency, automate regression to accelerate releases and free up engineering resources, and risk management ensure the comprehensive coverage of compliance and security functionality. And mostly here, this slide speaks about enhancing system reliability through automation. Like as I emphasized on saying, like it should be tested in such a way like there shouldn't be no production defects existing. So this point speaks on reduction in production incidents. Like organizations with mature automation programs report significantly fewer defects reaching customers and faster defect execution detection. Like automation testing identifies issues earlier in development, reducing fixing costs dramatically. And improved regression coverage. Like automation enables comprehensive regression testing, impractical with manual approaches. And in this case, like system reliability emerges as a cumulative effect of comprehensive test coverage, rapid feedback loops, and consistent execution across all changes. And automated testing provides a scale and repeatability necessary to maintain quality standards whilst supporting aggressive release schedules as well. And this results in demonstrably more stable systems and deliver better user experiences and require less reactive maintenance effort. And this in general speaks about how the reducing regression costs and accelerating releases. And we also have like formulas on return on investments. And like, for example, there is a formula where it says in release one, every release you need to run about 1,000 test cases, and manual versus automation. If every time it happens manually, there's a cost involved, and if there's a automated once for all and it runs automatically every month, the cost decreases release by release. So this is what this slide speaks on mostly. Automation drastically transformed this by executing comprehensive regression suites in minutes or hours rather than days or weeks. This removes a bottleneck, enabling continuous validation and faster, more frequent releases. This financial case is compelling as automation delivers order of magnitude improvements in regression efficiency and business agility, providing competitive advantages through rapid time to market. So this is a roadmap which speaks about actionable implementation roadmap. Like first 1 to 2 months, we have a foundation of assessing the current state, establishing the baselines, identifying critical user journeys, select tooling, and secure stakeholder alignment. And then the first 3 to 4 months as the pilot implementation, automate highest user priority journeys, establish CI/CD integration, implementing reporting dashboards, and validate the ROI methodology. And then the 5 to 8 months as an expansion, like scale automation to additional critical paths, optimize test execution performance, refine coverage strategy based on the data. And then the 9 to 12 months achieve comprehensive coverage of critical functionality, demonstrate your sustained return on investment, establish center of excellence, and plan next phase investments. And after 9 to 12 months have been done, this could be like a living thing with different versions coming up with the new AI technologies. So that's how we can implement the roadmap. And the key takeaways are building a sustainable automation success, like connect quality to business values, link automation investments to quality metrics and financial outcomes, turning testing into a strategic asset, prioritize ruthlessly, like use risk-based design to focus resources on high impact areas, and optimizing ROI in complex mobile web ecosystems. And measure continuously, like establish data-driven foundations or for continuous optimization, and to demonstrate automation business impact, and align strategically to the initiatives with organizational objectives to secure sustained investments and collaboration, not only on the project what you're working on, but the project what it's supposed to support the other integration systems. So basically, the main objective of year to say is also like automation thrives by demonstrably improving business outcomes and business sustainable practices by focusing on clear ROI objectives, strategic implementation, and data driven refinement. So, this is what I wanted to speak and present on the return on investment through quality driven test automation for the mobile web systems. Thank you, guys. Any questions you have?
Very good. I'm just checking on the comments there. We don't have any questions in yet. Any guys, any questions for Sarat?
No, very interesting, honestly.
Very interesting, yeah, the automation stuff that's happening at the moment. Very good. So we're streaming out to 4 LinkedIn live channels and 4 YouTube channels. So there might be some questions come in on those. We can bring them up there later. So Vinay, say you can share your screen there with us now.
Sure. Are
Yeah,
you
I
able to
have.
see this?
Yeah, I got you
Okay.
there. Yeah.
Second. Let me bring this tab to the side. Yep. Okay. Yep. Okay. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining today. Happy New Year. My name is Vinay Chattopadhyay. I'm currently a staff software engineer at ServiceNow. And I have 12 years of experience building large scale distributed systems across companies like Microsoft, ServiceNow, Ticketmaster, or Live Nation Entertainment, StubHub, and Nordstrom. Creating an enterprise software involves more than just writing a code. The, it requires ensuring that business process runs smoothly and the system should be as flexible as possible. Today, I will share my professional experience on how I have learned and adopted lessons to the world of hybrid cloud. So, come to today's topic. The topic is predictive and self healing business continuity and disaster recovery. It's a very close to real world changes I see every day in production systems. In coming slides, I will walk through why traditional BCDR fails, how automation and applying some ML and policy as a code can help you move from reactive firefighting to proactive nature. This is not a theory. These are the patterns I have implemented in production at scale. Okay. So hybrid cloud has transformed enterprise IT and it gives us flexibility, scalability, and more choices. It opens up more doors. But it also creates a new problem, which is complexity. So in my previous company, we ran a distributed e-commerce platform. Our workloads spanned on-premise data center and AWS for compute, and as well as it integrated with some third-party systems. When a major concert or when a major event occur, there's suddenly the traffic would spike, uh, like I mean, thousand times. It requires 1,000 time process speed. If any part of that hybrid infrastructure failed, like I mean, third-party APIs not reachable or transaction failed, we couldn't just restart the server. Like I mean, restarting server will cause another headache. We had to orchestrate a recovery mechanism across multiple clouds or databases so that you can make a smooth um, business transformation or transition. So the traditional BCDR, like I mentioned, the static rule books or manual process are complex and they simply cannot keep up the level of distribution and independency. So let me break down why traditional BCDR falls short. So manual process, many disaster recovery plans still involves 100 plus manual steps. I see a lot of companies are still keeping the legacy systems. If any crisis occur, you know that, right? Like I mean, human nature is like I mean, we make mistakes. They can skip the steps because of the panic situation that could lead more disaster. So I can give you a simple example. At StubHub, we handled NFL ticket transaction between primary and secondary markets. If our integration platform went down during a game day, we couldn't afford to wait for someone to manually execute 50 steps or even 2, 3 steps run book. By the time we reach, or by the time we reach and make this system stable, we would have already lost thousands of dollars in the transaction. The second one is static documentation. So static documentation become obsolete the moment you deploy new infrastructure. So I have seen recovery plans that reference to servers that were decommissioned months ago. The document is outdated. Fragile cross-platform orchestration. When you involve different systems or different cloud, it means different APIs, different automations, different authentication. You need a different monitoring tools. Trying to orchestrate recovery across uh, hybrid clouds manually is never impossible. So you can ask, like, I mean, what is the solution? This is why automation is not an optional; it is an essential component. So by automating fundamental changes, it will lead us to go smoothly. By moving from manual process to infrastructure as a code and policy as a code, we can make recovery predictable, repeatable, and testable. So there are certain tools, for example, Azure ARM templates and Terraform, which is a common utility, will provide you hybrid cloud. And coming to different I mean, each cloud provides their own way of infrastructure as a code and policy as a code, which is like a scale out, scale up configurations. At Microsoft, I worked on release automation and monitoring system for Windows packages. We automated the entire pre-release of validation, the business rule process, using Azure Event Hub and Service Fabric. Before we made that, it's a manual testing process. We used to see longer, I mean, delay the test results and those things. After automation, we reduced the validation time and caught the blocking issues before they reach to production. Here are the four architecture models which I learned. I would like to share as part of this. There are plenty of the approaches are available in the, I mean, in the real world, but I feel like these four are like, I mean, key points. The major one is a geo-redundant active-active deployment. So if you see traditional or legacy systems, there is usually will be like, I mean, a passive server will be sit in a standby side. Any issue occur, like, I mean, manually we will flip that one, or we will update the configuration to make the passive standby as a primary. So all regions, I mean, when it comes to geo-redundant active-active deployment, so if you deploy the components in two different regions, both regions serve traffic simultaneously. Even though if one server is down, still the other server can take the control, or at least serve the traffic until you bring the new server, or until the automation brings the new server, make it is available. The second one, it's like, I mean, hybrid nature. You can build cloud to on-premise failback. So in case, I mean, in case if any cloud system has like a critical outages, you can trust your own on-premises servers, and you can flip the traffic and still serve the serve your business. So cross-cloud orchestration, rather than depending on a single cloud system, you can distribute your systems into, I mean, distribute your business entity across multiple clouds like Azure, AWS, or GCP. Fourth one, immutable infrastructure. So imagine if you just trust on, like, I mean, one hardware or anything, you can configure, like, I mean, deployment as clean as possible and maintain a versioning things, and so that you can test thoroughly in the same code or infrastructure as a code will work same for all the environments, pre-production as well as a production, so that you can make more smooth and no configuration drift. Let me show you how these work in practice. So one of the example I would like to provide here is, like, I mean, active-active orchestrator, active-active architecture. So at Microsoft, we build a Windows release readiness dashboard using geo-redundant active-active across multiple Azure regions. This dashboard is a very mission critical, because if it went down, Windows release managers couldn't see blocking issues, and the entire Windows release pipelines would halt, and it can affect millions of users. So how we used, or how I adopted this to avoid this kind of issue, I have configured Azure Traffic Manager to distribute load or distribute the traffic across East US, West US, as well as West Europe. It's the servers are, I mean, the MongoDB, the Azure database, as well as the Service Fabric deployed in cross regions, so that all three regions, identically distribute serve the traffic, and they all has like a real time data replication. So all the regions will show the same data. During for the testing purpose, during a planned Azure maintenance window, so if East US region went offline, the traffic can still serve via West US. Come to next, how every organization can go 100% cloud to hybrid mechanism way. I see many companies still need on-premise infrastructure for compliancy, cost, or legacy reasons. I would like to bring a recent experience, recent outage, well-known outage. In October 2025, AWS disclosed the cause of major outage that affected thousands of companies. The issue traced back to latent defect in a DynamoDB's automated DNS management system. This triggered by an empty DNS records in the US East 1 region. And ultimately, it required a manual operator intervention to correct it. The takeaway is not isn't cloud is a bad. The takeaway is automation can fail too. And when it fails at a hyperscale, the blast radius is a huge. That's why hybrid BCDR design often stay bidirectional. You always have to be ready with a plan B. If cloud region has a major server disruption, fail back to alternative environment. It could be another region, or it could be another provider, or it could be your own on-premise servers. If on-premise becomes unstable or fail forward back to some other cloud. So you always have to be more stable and more scalable or more resiliency proof. The bidirectional failover and failback gives you cloud agility and safety net. So a single region incident does not become a full business outage. Each major cloud provides often strong native BCDR tools like Azure Site Recovery and AWS Elastic Disaster Recovery. And Google Cloud brings advanced machine learning into the picture with the intelligence scheduling and cross-region replication. So individually, these tools are powerful, but when you try to combine them, a hybrid environment, you hit inoperability changes, or sorry, inoperability challenges. Here is a hard truth. This data I collected from based on the wiki and other things. 60% of enterprise report difficulty achieving streamline interoperability across cloud providers. Let me bring an example. In previous role, I worked on a distributed platform that integrated with multiple third-party services, each with its own APIs, authentication model, monitoring logs, or rate limits and all. When we try to build a unified recovery layer, we have like a root blocker because AWS uses IAM roles, Azure uses managed identity, GCP uses service accounts. So the resource naming convention also a little bit. It's completely different between the cloud platforms. So without creating an abstraction, complexity grows exponentially because when you add another component, it's like a double complexity. If you add one more, the complexity will be like a 3 times. So you will end up with a custom code for every provider, which becomes like a unmaintainable. You have to test thoroughly. So the solution is you have to make sure add an abstraction layer and a standardization that wrapper on top of all these APIs so the abstraction layer can build a unified API wrapper and normalizes the provider specific interfaces. So you can quickly flip between the different clouds. The second one is a policy as a code. You define recovery policies, declare using tools. So you maintain the policies using version control so that you can use the code deployable and testable across all the environments. Maintain orchestrator engines. So put workflow engines that understand the nature of the abstraction, and it can present a unified control plane. I can give you a simple example. At Microsoft, we used Azure Logical App and Event Grid to orchestrate complex workflow across multiple services. When a risk was detected in Windows pipelines or any other testing modules, the orchestrator region automatically triggers remediation workflows and scaling the resources or roll back the deployments, make sure that taken care. These three components, like orchestration, policy, orchestration, enables true hybrid resiliency. So comes to the next one, infrastructure as a code. I can say this is a foundation for everything what we discussed so far. Without making infrastructure as a code, the transformation disaster recovery from documentation into executable version controlled code will be a little difficult. If something goes wrong, we don't fix it. We redeploy from the code so that the recovery environment is identical to production and become it built from the same code. So you can think like, every cloud provides their own way of infrastructure as a coding nature. Like, they own that module, they provide upfront. You can use simple, web-based clicks. You can extract that same infrastructure as a code. And on top of that, you can modify that template, add more regions or provide the names as a using your configurations or external DB calls or anything like that. The infrastructure as a code eliminates configuration drift and provides audit trails for compliancy, gives you confidence during the real incidents. Let me talk about how the AI components can, how we can bring the AI-driven predictive recovery mechanism to this system so that you can reduce further manual interventions. So the traditional BCDR is a reactive nature. Some things break, you respond. The predictive the predictive BCDR is a proactive nature. So the systems or you detect and fix the problem before they cause the outages by configuring alerts or saying that any ML based algorithms or those things. I would like to discuss those things in next slide. So here is a one use case which I provided here. You can see that step by step. But I would like to provide the real algorithms which we can adopt and reduce these things. The ML algorithms can give you alerting mechanism. You can configure like a static and baseline models, G-score or standard deviation, the means, data point, how far you can define a mean, and you can define measure how far a the outage can occur by calculating the standard deviation time or the distance between the mean and your those are like a static the gaps. And you can use a moving average. You can configure static based rules. You can adopt unsupervised learning, you can make it like a k nearest neighborhood, so that k nearest neighbor KNN algorithm, which it can at least give you an alert, or you can configure such certain alert mechanism using that. Similar way, you can adopt time sensitive or time series specific models. The Meta provides a Propet, which is a algorithm. It's a framework which can excellent for handling a sensitive, like a time-based traffic spikes or anything like that. Similar way, long short-term memory, you can configure if I reach certain level memory configurations based on the log metrics and all, trigger and alerts, those things. So how do you build these future-ready BCDR systems? Establish infrastructure as a code foundation. Implement policy as a code. Define the recovery policies. Ensure consistency. Deploy cross-cloud orchestration. Make sure that you always come with a backup plans, either cross-cloud or fall back to on-premise, integrate AI-driven intelligence. If you don't trust fully on AI, at least you put a some barrier. You need a approval for manual. AI can give you an alert, and it can pause for that approval. Once you approve it, then AI can recover or take care from that onwards. And enable continuous improvement. Don't make your documents outdated with the new infrastructure. Any API update, make sure that you update code, infrastructure as your actual business code, infrastructure as a code, as well as the documentation, so that everything will be synced. Establish, always establish a feedback loop. Uh, let me bring all, let me bring this all together. The converse of automation, AI, and policy as a code is a fundamentally transforming BCDR, business continuity and disaster recovery. We are moving from reactive firefighting to proactive, intelligent, and resilience engineering process. In my professional experience, I have seen how these strategies move the needle in a high stake prediction environments by moving away from manual validation and adopting automated event driven recovery framework for critical release pipelines. I can say, like, in one company we achieved a 67% reduction in recovery time and a 54 percentage of improvement in overall system reliability. Yes, this requires investment, the investment in new technology, new skills, as well as new methodologies. But these return a clear, fast recovery, smooth business, improved reliability, and consistency mechanism, and system can heal themselves. Okay, the organization that embraces these patterns don't just survive disruption; they prevent them entirely upfront. I would like to wrap here. Thank you for your time and attention. I hope this session gave you a practice insights from my experience. I'm happy to take your questions now.
I just have one question myself there. When you said like it requires new technologies and upskilling and stuff like that, how difficult is the upskilling side to this?
With the new AI tools and all, learning a new skills is, I can say that, like, before AI, the learning requires a lot of efforts. Like, as a human being, you have to understand if any new technology comes or new framework or new API comes, we have to learn that step by step, and then we can adapt it to one proof of concept, and then scale it to all the services. But with at least using an AI or these patterns, we can ramp up that. That delay. We can reduce that delay, ramp up learning scale a little faster, quickly implement and use it in a proof of concept way for non-production environments and test it thoroughly. Yeah, new technology is evolving, I can say. Yeah.
Yeah. So it takes time to upskill people, and
Yes.
especially with AI coming at us so fast, it's a lot of people getting into it. Yeah. Any other questions from anybody?
Great presentation. I think disaster recovery is one of those areas that, you know, doesn't doesn't necessarily get tested until you're in the disaster. So being proactive about it, like you said, is so important.
I can say these are like
Yeah,
accidents. Like, while you're driving, somebody
yeah,
comes in between and they hit you. It's like, you cannot predict those things until you really experience that scenario.
Right. And that's where
yeah.
that's
Yeah,
sometimes where the
For
learning comes, right?
Yes.
yeah, for my experience is I see, let me say, maybe all days when you come from on-premise to the cloud, because if you go to the cloud, you don't need to be CDR, right? But this is a very big mistake because honestly, the cloud is another provider, just this one. So maybe if you are in the cloud, the primary is the primary is learn and also implement another business continuity disaster recovery, because you don't know, but maybe we affected in the past, with the another cloud and also a global with the Microsoft with the CDN. If you remember, so basically you need to set up and configure and testing and implement in all your deploy one business continuity disaster recovery, BCDR strategy in your company, in your infrastructure, in your solution, everywhere. But I think, it's the first task and also the primary keep in mind when you move where or you are if you have a lot of solution allocated in different hyperscale or different location, so that is very interesting session Binay, because I think it's, from my experience also, it's very, very interesting and important reminder, this one.
So my
Thank you.
takeaway from your Benai is that you mentioned that when it happened, the panic that comes with it, if you want to do it manually, right, would make you make mistakes, right? So I really appreciate that comment. And yeah, automating issues like that would actually take the emotion part of it and allow the system to get back on its feet. So yeah, thank you. Wonderful presentation. Very nice guys. Honestly. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, Mark, do you want to share your screen there with us?
Yeah, all popping. Great presentation, guys. Really interesting stuff. And let me go ahead and try share my screen. Just give me a thumbs up when my screen is visible there, please, Frank.
Yeah, we got you there.
Good
It's
to
up there,
go.
huh?
Happy New Year, everyone. Frank, thanks for setting up the call. It's fantastic to be here. So my name is Mark Hughes. I've spent the last year working at Microsoft as a co-pilot and AI solution engineer. My background's heavily in the M365, SharePoint admin, SharePoint development space. And obviously over the last few years, like many folks, I've spent a lot of time with Copilot. And the session I submitted for today is around SharePoint governance, but in particular SharePoint advanced management that comes with Copilot and is a key piece pre any Copilot development or even or deployment or even post deployment. And then I wanted to touch on some pieces around content readiness. So the new knowledge agent and some new enhancements Microsoft have made around the overall document processing and the metadata understanding. Copilot can now read metadata from SharePoint, which is fantastic. So I'll skip this agenda piece, like 4 items on it. I'll get through SharePoint Advanced Management and the Knowledge Agent. I don't want to keep everyone here all day. So with SharePoint Advanced Management, and one of the reasons I wanted to submit this session is because I found that many folks don't realize they have access to SharePoint Advanced Management. And it's a fantastic governance tool. But I just wanted to highlight on this slide here, all of the different add-ons, and SharePoint Advanced Management is just an add-on to your Copilot license. So even if you have E3, E5, and one Copilot license, you have access to SharePoint Advanced Management in full, which is fantastic as a SharePoint administrator. I just want to pop out into the product itself. So as long as you have that Copilot license and you have the SharePoint administrator role, you can access all of these SharePoint advanced management capabilities. And they show up across the admin center, really. We can find some of the capabilities in active sites if we click on a site. Site lifecycle management as well. That's very much SharePoint advanced management. Change history. So if you need to audit what your admins are doing across the environment. Change history can do that. And then the data access governance reports are real key pieces, uh, is a real key piece to SharePoint Advanced Management. You can see where you might be overexposed, and I'll dive into all of these in a bit more detail shortly. Site policy comparison as well, and then the advanced management piece here. So this is the main hub for SharePoint Advanced Management, but it's fairly scattered across the admin center here. If I just click into site lifecycle management here, for example, we'll see 3 policies that we can deploy from inside of here. The site adaptation policy was just added in the last few weeks. So in SharePoint Advanced Management, you can initiate a site access review for all of your site owners. And this site attestation policy allows you to do that in a schedule, essentially. So every 3 months or every month, you can nudge your site owners and have them review the permissions on their site. And I've worked in organizations where this was a requirement, and I'm sure many of you have as well. So really nice feature inside of there to do that. Site ownership policies as well. So the ability to audit your environment and also set a policy. So you can configure this policy, put it into simulation mode, and that will help you identify where you might be missing site owners across your environment. And then you can trigger a policy that will send emails out. You can have a policy saying that you require at least 2 site owners per site, and you can start to enforce that. And then the inactive sites policy, so all about keeping the sprawl away from your environment. And I'll walk through the configuration of one of these policies shortly. So for example, if a SharePoint site has had no activity in 3 months or 6 months, you can then choose to put that site into read-only mode, or you can integrate with M365 Archive with the inactive site policy and also the ownership policy as well. If someone doesn't, if the correct number of site owners can't be found or defined, then the site can be set to read only, or sent to M365 Archive. And this integration is quite nice, I think, with M365 Archive, because archiving your sites with that native integration can be about 75% cheaper than purchasing additional SharePoint storage. And I'll just go down to the main landing page for SharePoint Advanced Management here, and I'll pop back to some of the other ones later on in the presentation. So as of the last couple of months, we now have this start assessment option. For most of 2025, we would have had to execute a little bit of PowerShell to start the assessment and get the oversharing baseline report. But we can go ahead here, click Start Assessment, and depending on the size of your environment, it can take up to 5 days sometimes for the whole access governance report to run and all of the various reports associated with that. So it can take a little bit of time. But if I scroll down here, we can see some of the reports that we get. So the site inactivity, missing site ownership that we just talked about a moment ago, broken permission inheritance, really important to know where that's happening across your environment, org-wide site permission, so the everyone except external users group, and is there any people in my organization links, or is there anyone links or anonymous links across the environment? So a really nice suite of reports. And personally, as a SharePoint admin before, I would have used a tool like ShareGate, but now that we have tools like this, I think it can save us some money. So I'll pop back to the product in a bit. I'm just going to pop back into the deck. So how does Copilot or our agents actually get access to our SharePoint data? Now, I know many of you on the call are really technical Azure gods. You're probably building your own RAG systems, really complex ones. But I thought I would just ground us in the sort of Copilot architecture for those that may not have seen the flow of Copilot. So when we prompt Copilot, whether it's from the Copilot app, Copilot chat, Office apps, or one of our Copilot Studio agents, this is the at a high level the flow that it goes through. So we enter the prompt, and then we enter the pre-processing stage. So the orchestrator at this stage is really trying to determine, okay, what is the intent of the user, and what is the scenario config that I require. The scenario config that's required from the Copilot apps, say, versus Excel app skills, is going to be a little bit different. So the orchestrator needs to understand that in order to gather the right tools to carry out the task. So if we just have the work tab selected in Copilot, and it's a fairly broad query, find me something about HR policies, for example, the orchestrator is going to understand that intent. It's also going to understand the knowledge it's connected to. And one of those large knowledge sources is, of course, the M365 graph. And then there's a number of first-party tools as well, right? So there is the web search tool. Go out to the Bing search API to augment the response, or the code interpreter to leverage up to 650 Python libraries to do visualization or analysis and so on. So in the case of using the graph as the knowledge source, and that includes SharePoint, there's a number of different indexes in here that pertain to SharePoint. So within the graph or the semantic fabric, where SharePoint shows up is across the tenant data, of course, but there's also a user level index as well. So when you first assign a Copilot license in your tenant, the user level index is built. So that's your OneDrive, your mailbox, documents that are being shared with you, whether from OneDrive or SharePoint, documents you've been app mentioned in. So SharePoint can show up in that index and also the tenant data index. And then you may have some other pieces in there that you may have configured with Copilot connectors. You may be pulling in Jira, Confluence, and a whole other host of applications may be connected and brought into the graph as well. So that's how Copilot's gone into the graph and pulling back SharePoint data, particularly if it's a broad query. It's gone, and it's security trimmed as well. So when the user is prompting Copilot, it's only going to go and retrieve data from those indexes that the user has access to. But quite often, SharePoint environments can be full of sprawl. We're not always confident in the permissions we have set across those environments, which is the challenge, and therefore SharePoint Advanced Management can really help us out with that. So once Copilot has gone to the graph or wherever it needs to go, whichever knowledge source, first-party tool, if it's an agent, a third-party tool, great. Then the orchestrator works with a large language model, synthesizes a response, and then on the way out during post-processing, that's where we see stuff like responsible AI, harmful content, sexual content, hallucination blockers, citations are added. If you've sensitivity labels, they will be applied here as well, and then auditing for any of your purview audit logs as well. So I just wanted to ground us in that flow a little bit, just for those that may have not seen that before and understand how Copilot is accessing your SharePoint data. Let me just pop that into full screen again. Okay, so at a fairly global level, I found some data. So Microsoft say that there's 3.2 billion documents added a day across M365, which essentially means OneDrive or SharePoint for the most part, and 80 to 90% of that data is unstructured, and that kind of lines up with what I've seen across many different organizations. Tends to be a bit of a dumping ground. Very few sites are using the metadata navigation, which is often suggested as best practice, but there's user friction there, and it can be hard to adopt. So the new document processing is going to be super helpful to understand that data, and also the knowledge agent to help us organize those libraries. And once the libraries are organized, Copilot can then read the metadata, which does increase the overall accuracy of the responses that the user is getting. And then down below there, classification is always a challenge, even if we set the right columns or tags in SharePoint. Sometimes there's, of course, human error, or it's just that friction piece again. So being able to leverage the knowledge agent to do some of that classification and tagging for us is super beneficial. So the oversharing concern across SharePoint, there's lots to it really. I just put these 3 pillars here. So if we don't understand the content across our environment, our governance, where we might be overexposed, which sites are public, which are private, it's going to result in sort of Delve on steroids. I'm sure we all had that experience many years ago when Delve was first released. Caused a lot of escalations, and Copilot can really just exaggerate that because it will go in there and pull back any data the user has access to, knowingly or not. So a key issue, of course, is access to information beyond what the user needs for their role. And that also speaks to relevancy as well. When we start using Copilot or any AI solution, the content underpinning it, uh, we need to keep that fresh, right? Because relevancy, accuracy really helps increase the overall sentiment of Copilot or agent or whatever solution we are using. And then the inappropriate sharing of content that's shared unknowingly, and then out of date content, the relevancy piece. So security concerns and also overall sentiment of Copilot and our agents can really be impacted if we don't have our governance in place. Okay, so here's 2 quick examples of before a SharePoint Advanced Management feature has been implemented versus afterwards. And this is an example of one of the features called restricted content discovery. So you can choose to opt out and not have a site be discoverable by Copilot. In this case, on the left-hand side, you have people asking, you have someone prompting Copilot asking about layoff information, essentially. And on the left-hand side, we can see that a confidential reorg document was returned, which is of course problematic. So we can use content restricted content discovery to just on that layoff or reorg site. So if we enable on that site, we'll get the result on the right hand side. Copilot just won't be aware of it at all, regardless of whatever permissions the user may have on that reorg site. So really quick example of that restricted content discovery, and I'll go through how we can turn that on each site in a moment. Okay, some of the common issues across some of the common issues I see across SharePoint environments, particularly around Copilot projects, are these 5 pillars here. So site privacy set to public. So if a site is set to public, Copilot can, of course, go in and pull back any data from that site. Where I most typically see this is when self-service site creation is turned on across an environment. Users create the site, there's a lack of user education or just human error, and the site is left to public and therefore discoverable. So the data access governance report is going to show all of your sites set to public, and then you can take action. Another issue is default sharing options. Not as much of an issue, but still can be an issue. So in the SharePoint Admin Center, you can set your default sharing links to specific people in my organization. And if it's set to people in my organization, that just opens up some level of risk, although there is some protection built into those people in my organization links. So if you generate one of those links, it doesn't mean it's discoverable by everyone. However, if someone has already clicked on that link, it will be discoverable by Copilot, and therefore the data can be used in whatever response is given. So the data access governance report shows you where those links are used across the environment as well. And then broken permission inheritance as well, really important to understand where inheritance is broken across the environment, whether that's at a document library level or a folder level, because quite often we can look at just the top level of the SharePoint site, the 3 default groups, and not have visibility into those document libraries and folders across the site that may have a different set of permissions. So again, the report does show you where that is happening across the environment. And then the fourth one here, the use of the everyone except external users group. So this is on by default when you deploy your tenant. And again, this is a super handy group if you're building out a communication site or an intranet and you just want to give access to everyone, maybe read-only access, really convenient, but it can tend to get overused across an environment. And wherever that is used, Copilot can, of course, go in and pull back data wherever that is used. And then understanding where sensitivity labels are used. I know we're speaking about SharePoint governance, and it could be a whole day session where we jump into purview and sensitivity labels. But SharePoint Advanced Management will also show you where labels are used or not used across your environment as well, if that is a consideration for you. Okay, so I'm going to go through 5 steps covering that will cover off some of those pillars, some actions you can take. So step 1 is updating the default sharing link. So the screenshot I've added here, we can see that the default is set to specific people. And then we have the other options as well, only people in your organization. So specific people is typically the safest option to go with there. And then we can also remove that everyone except external users group with a very simple piece of PowerShell there. Set SPO tenant, show everyone except external users, claim false, and that will remove visibility of that, so folks won't be able to use it and give you that extra layer of confidence, hopefully. And then the cleaning up of stale content. So the inactive sites policy, I'm going to pop back to the product and I'm going to go through setting up one of these policies. And there's a lot of commonality between all of these policies, the different filters you can select and so on. So if I go into site lifecycle management, inactive site policy, create a policy, and go to next. So first up, I need to define the scope. So the scope of sites, I can upload a CSV with up to 10,000 sites, or I can simply select sites at scale. And I can do this based on a template. So I can apply it to classic sites that you may have from a previous on-prem migration, communication sites, team sites with a group, Teams connected sites, and so on. So plenty of filtering options there. I'm going to select communication sites for the moment. And then we also filter by creation source here also. So what was the entry point of creation? SharePoint Home, was it done from the admin center? SharePoint Management Shell, and even the option for PNP there as well, which is really nice. And then entry point for Teams as well. So lots of options. And then do we want to apply this to sites that already have a retention policy applied? So on or off for that one. And then for each of these policies, you can exclude up to 100 sites. Maybe you have a site that's just an archive site. You know it's not going to get activity, but you want to keep it there for whatever reason. You can just add it to the exclusion list here, and the policy will bypass that. Okay, let me do SharePoint Home and next. Okay, so how long after the last activity should a site be considered inactive? So we've 1, 2, 3, and 6 months. I understand we're going to get more options here in the future to expand that out a little bit. So the inactivity, So it's looking across activity across a few different locations. So if it's associated with a team, has there been a message in the channel? How about the connected community across Engage or the associated mailbox? So that's where it's looking for activity for those group connected sites. And then who should be notified? If we select site owners here, that's going to be the folks that are in the site owners group on the site itself, or the site admin. So your admins that may be set up as the site collection administrator, or indeed you can do both. And then this is a new option here across policies as well. So you may want to set up a group. You may have, I know, you may have one of your VPs in the site owners group, but you don't want to hammer any of the senior leadership team with these emails. You can create an exclusion group or just add an exclusion here by entering a user's name from the directory, and that will ensure they are not spammed with these emails. Okay, so after 3 months, the email is sent out, and if there's no action after 3 notifications, what should happen? Do nothing, wait for the next cycle to kick in, or take an enforcement. We can set the site to read-only access. In the case of an inactive site policy, it might be a good approach. Set it to read only, and I suppose see who raises an issue. Or if you have the integration set up, or if you've enabled M365 archive, you could also send the site to M365 archive, which, as I mentioned, is a fairly cost-effective way to archive your data, especially when compared to purchasing additional SharePoint storage. So in this case, I'm just going to leave it as read-only because I don't have M365 archive set up. And I'll just name the policy test, not very creative. And then for all of these policies, we have the option of simulation mode. So if you want to just check to see how the policy is firing, go ahead, set up simulation mode. Whenever you're happy with how the policy is firing, you can then open the policy, set it to active, and then that will start triggering emails across your environment. Okay, so what do those emails look like? Well, I'll come back to those emails shortly. I want to discuss the data access governance report. So when we run a data access governance report or click on that start assessment from the SharePoint Admin Center, when that has finished, this is what we are presented with. We see all of the sites in our environment, and we have all of these columns here as well. So moving from left to right, we of course see the site name and URL. We see the total permissioned users across the site. We can see the total amount of files. I think good information to have to help us determine whether we want to take a closer look at some sites. Do we have any sensitive files in the site? So files with some sensitivity labels applied. How many unique permissions have we got? How many times is the everyone except external users group used? How many people in your org links, anyone links? And then the site privacy. So have we got public or private sites? And then whatever sensitivity we may have applied, and then external sharing. So this is a fairly high level view. You can also click on download detailed report. You'll get a CSV. If time permits, I can show you what that looks like toward the end. And that gives you a more granular look into these sites as well. There's some other actions we can take from this data access governance section. There's the site access reviews that we can trigger from here. So if we go ahead and click on Contoso HR and then click on Initiate Site Access Review, we can also add multiple sites here, and then we can pop some comments in for the site owners or site admins. Once we pop our message in, click on Send. The email is being updated since I last took this screenshot. but it's a version of this. In fact, you can add your own corporate branding now, because the feedback was that many users thought this was a phishing email. So, but it's similar to this. So your SharePoint administrator, or sorry, your site owners or admins will get this email. They'll click on View Shared Items, and then they're brought into their own slice of the Data Access Governance Report. And this is a fairly new addition to SharePoint sites. So as a site owner, they can come in, they can of course expand out each section. And what I think is really nice, because doing this sort of work is it's not the most attractive at times. So you can go do a bit, mark each section as complete, and then when each section is complete, you can then complete the review, and then as an administrator, you'll see that that is complete in the admin center. And if you've set up attestation, that will be complete until the next review is due. So you can see a lot of similar columns here, a little bit more information around the sensitive info types, the sensitive info types. You can see social security number, sensitivity label. When they click on the number of groups, it shows them the actual groups that are associated with a particular location. And then of course they can manage access here as well on the right-hand side. A little bit of user education required perhaps to help users manage this, but a much needed feature, I think, for many SharePoint administrators. The next feature we can leverage from this data access governance section, and also from active sites, is restrict access for selected sites. So again, we can select the site, and then we can lock a site down to a particular group. So regardless of what your current sharing settings are on a particular site, let's take the HR site, for example. You have the whole HR team and the members group of the site, but you may also have a HR security group. So you could go in here and just add the HR security group to the site from here, and that will ensure that no one outside of that HR security group can access the site at all. So just an extra layer of security for those really sensitive sites. And I think it's also a really nice feature in case of an escalation. HR escalated to say a certain file is exposed. So as an admin, you can go in, you can lock the site down, carry out an investigation, remove the setting from here, and then normal permissions will resume. So say, for example, if someone had access to the site and you went and just restricted it to the HR group, this is what they will be presented with: the classic SharePoint access denied, and your organization's policies prevent you from seeing the content on this site. Okay, so I'm going to pop back to the admin center and then to active sites. So going back to restricted content discovery. So say, for example, if this communication site is super top secret, and I never want Copilot to use any data on this site to formulate a response, I can click on the site, go to settings, and then I have this option here. So restrict content from my Microsoft 365 Copilot. You can do this with PowerShell as well if you want to do it in batch. So if I turn this on now, that will just ensure that Copilot will never use the data on this site. And it's also an entry point into the last feature we discussed as well. So restricted site access. If I click on edit here and zoom out, I haven't configured another setting that I need to enable this, but you can do that from here as well to lock these sites down to a particular group, regardless of how the permissions may be currently set on the site. If I click on save, that will go and add that restricted content discovery. Okay, just in the interest of time, I'm just going to pop over and talk about the knowledge agent. Okay, so first up, to enable the knowledge agent. So the knowledge agent is an agent that's built in to SharePoint. It's a floating widget. It can organize your library. It can help you manage permissions across your site. It can do OCR, autofill columns, and a whole host of other capabilities. However, it's not on by default, and it's currently in preview mode with, I think, GA expected a little bit later in Q1, but really easy to enable. You just connect to SPO service, connect to your tenant with your admin account, and then you simply just set SPO tenant, knowledge agent scope, all sites, or you can scope it to one or two sites or however many sites you wish with PowerShell. And once that's done and you navigate to a SharePoint site, you'll see this floating widget in the bottom right-hand corner. Depending where you are on the site, you're going to get different options. Right now, I'm in a document library, so I'm presented with a number of options here. But if I'm on the main landing page of a communication site, I'm going to have options like improve this site, for example. So if I click on organize this library, it will go and add some custom columns for me. If I have one file selected and then I click on the knowledge agent, you can see I'm presented with a number of different options here. File summarization, create an FAQ based on a document, get an audio overview, which is showing up across OneDrive, notebooks, and of course SharePoint now, ask a question. So if you just need that sort of that RAG pattern with SharePoint, the knowledge agent can do that out of the box now. It may save you from creating a SharePoint agent or a fairly basic HR policy agent. You can just ask the knowledge agent questions. And I'll just zoom out and I'll click on organize this library. Okay, so you can see it's now organizing my content. Oh yes, it hasn't fully enabled for me. So I'm going to go over to the article. So because I only enabled it a few hours ago, it doesn't seem to be doing the job for me. But when you click on organize the library, what it essentially does, it's going to look at your content, make a good educated guess as to which autofill columns you may want to use. You can customize each of these columns. So an autofill column in SharePoint is based on a prompt essentially. So for each document in your library, you can configure an autofill column, and it could be extracting an executive summary from the document. So for each document in the library, the column will go and extract an executive summary. If you have an invoice library, it could be extracting the total for each receipt, for example, or the region that the purchase was made. They're highly flexible, and because Copilot can read these now, they're super powerful and can really enhance the overall Copilot and agent experience. So this is what it would look like if it was working correctly for me. So if you've not played around with the knowledge agent, I suggest giving it a go. It's super powerful, and you can see some of the options here as well. Create columns, extract key actions. You can even create rules as well. So the old rules or alert engine in SharePoint has gone away, but we can set up rules here and alerts to say, give me a daily summary of all documents added, or if someone changes a document, email me. That one can obviously get quite noisy, but you've plenty of options here as well. And Frank, I'll wrap it up there because I think I'm a little bit over. So happy to take any questions on any of that.
Very good, Mark. Any questions there, lads?
So I just want to appreciate Mark so much for expanding this. A few months ago, before I went on my, I call it sabbatical, I looked at this on this show, and then we both evaluated them. Between that time and now, a lot has entered here, and you've taken your time to really explain a lot of things that actually eye-opening, and I really appreciate this. I've taken note of a lot of things, but I'm just thinking, don't you think one day Microsoft is going to build an admin center specifically for co-pilots? Because a lot is happening already here. So, Mark, I just want to say thank you for exposing all of this.
No, no problem. And thank you for taking the time to listen. I do think the pace of change with Copilot has been significant, particularly from May last year, I find. And when we look at with some of this new metadata understanding, it's really gaining an advantage on, I suppose, like ChatGPT connectors, because a lot of those products don't have that metadata understanding just yet. So I think it's all moving in a good direction. Camera is super blurry.
That's a really nice one. Yeah.
Very interesting session, Mark.
Thank you.
Gabriel, you were going to share something there with us.
Yeah, very quickly.
Yeah, as I said, Mark, we're not really kind of strict on the time as such. Sometimes these go on so well.
Can you see my screen? No.
Yeah, we got you there. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so basically today I will show you very quickly, very easy and live demos. So maybe finger crossed to do that. If you remember, in Microsoft environment, we have two different tools to do anything around the AI, low code to the pro code, right? So in my case, I will talking about to the Microsoft. The name is changed, Microsoft AI Foundry. If you remember, the platform to build any solution with AI, right? And also it's a platform for extensibility, like you can connect, you can connect with Copilot Studio, agent, source, acknowledge source, etc., etc. But now let me explain. If you remember, we are in the Microsoft Ignite. The change is the first one is the name and the look, right? So the new functionality we are today I will show you, it's about workflow. What is the reason? Because I will show you, because we are working in one platform is pro code, but with this workflow you can build any application, any workflow with natural language, without or with code. So let me show you very quickly. Where is my mouth? I can see my mouth. 1 second. Okay, for this one you can see here, this part is create. You have different way to create. The first one is black from scratch. The second is sequential loop. Human in the loop, when do you need to accept, etc., approve. And then the last one is group chat, right? So for this very quickly demo, we can use this one is sequential. You can see here, it's the workflow. Let me explain. In this case, is visual, or the workflow in Microsoft Foundry are visual tools for orchestrating sequence like this one that combine artificial intelligence model, etc., and agent with business logic, decision, user interaction, and data processing, right? So for this case, you can see here that it's a node. In this part, it's more or less like an N9. If you remember another tool, you can see here, you can add another node, you can add node or high node. That is important because when we are working with a couple of nodes, 20, 50 nodes, it's possible to understood what is doing this workflow, right? So in this case, where is my here? That is node is, you can see here, I will create 3 agents with no code. Okay, the first is analytic marketing agent. The second one is copywriting, marketing copywriting, and the third one is editor, right? So if you remember, inside the Microsoft Funding, you have the possibility to create agent as well. Okay, so for this one, we create very quickly sequential. Click on this one. Oops, sorry for that. You can see here we have the first one. I will invoke my agent, and then Microsoft provide agent ID to track, etc., right? And then in this part, you can use any agent create before, or in this part, you can create from scratch, right? So in this case, go to here, create new agent, go to the agent ID, agent one, for example, agent one, create, okay. Also, for this one, the most important here, a very key is for each agent, you can select different model. That is important because it's direct with the cost, efficiency, and response when you are using. So if you remember, inside the Microsoft Foundry, we have 11,000 frontier model to select. So in this part, you can select different model. For this one, before, you need to select the model. Sorry for that. Where is my mouse? Oh, sorry. Here. Okay. This model is previously deployment in this part. You can see here, GPT 4.1 million, right? So imagine I have three, in this case, I have three agents. I can select different models for each agent. That is very interesting, right? So for demos, for this demo, I will use the same agent one, select agent. You can see here, agent one, detail, GPT-1, GPT 4.1 mini, and then that is the instructions. You are marketing analyst giving a product description, identify key feature, target audience, unique selling point, right? Instruction. But here, you can add tools. You can add a knowledge source like SharePoint, etc., etc. You can provide memory, guard diary, and also the action. In this part is invoke agent. So basically, this workflow is using start here, is in flow, this one start here, and then invoke another agent, etc., etc. But you can select different flow, right? So here, oh, sorry for that. Agent one, detail, here, down. To create the second, we'll do the same. Agent two, create a new agent, agent two, very quickly, provide the instruction, and the action is invoke agent. You can see here, and the last one, you can move here, create agent, agent 3, sorry for that, agent 3, provide instruction, next station, select the next station, down. Okay, what happened when you create this agent? You are using agent service inside Microsoft Foundry. If you, let me save demo workflow. Okay, if you go here, you can see here, I have agent 1, agent 2, agent 3 with the same instruction, and also I can testing each agent, provide knowledge, memory, etc., etc. In this part, back to my workflow, and then here, if you remember this node, it's possible to hide to look better, right? And also you can add here imagine and the flow, right? So for example, in this case, right? Something like that. That is interesting because if you remember, this workflow is working for start in this part to finish. So here. But it's possible to change for this one. From here, the init to the finish, right? That is important because maybe in this is very basic workflow, but okay, but if you are working with another workflow more sophisticated, you need to the different criteria, different decision trees, something like that, okay? So in this kind, continue in this one. And also you can use the full code or YAML. You can see here, agent 1, first agent in the sequence, all the instruction to provide in the YAML file, and also in the final in the code, right? So come back to the flow. How it's possible to test in this one? Preview. And then 1 second, I think we are using this from in the say a cloud basic productive name, app naming my friend, designing from remote hybrid team, the app combines naming management, etc. If you remember, the instruction per each agent, right? Go here, and you can see here it's working now. Starting is work currently the agent 1, agent 2, agent 3. So, agent 1 key feature. If you remember the instruction for this agent, action, etc., combine invocation to agent 2 and then agent 3. You can see here it's key feature, cloud-based platform accessible for anywhere, task management, a power meeting, summaries, real-time collaboration, integration, etc., etc. And then this agent pass to the second agent, the marketing agent, to provide more marketing phrase to do the same. And then in the agent 2, you can see here, meet freeing the only one basic productivity app, etc., etc., etc. And finally, the redactor using the same last message passed from the agent 2 to create new message or text, sorry, for do the same text, but most productivity or more inherent, right? So in this case, you can also debugging if it's working good or not good, go to the metadata, something like that, right? If you remember, all of these one are the instruction for this one. You are a marketing analyst, provide this one, create a connect marketing copywriter, and this one instruction. And also the last one is this one. Your editor given drag copy, etc., etc. So the message here is that the last feature introduction in Microsoft Funding, also you can use no code or low code in a full pro code portal like Microsoft Foundry, right? This is the new, let me say, the new Copilot Studio Killer, right? Because it's more or less the same. All of this one is I will show you for this meeting, for this session. I hope you are very interesting. you have any questions, something like that.
Yeah, as you say, it's
Great
more or
job.
less it's yeah, good job. It's more or less as you say, Copilot Studio, but just from a different environment.
Yeah, yeah, it's in different environment because there is the platform is Microsoft Foundry is 100% full for developer, you know. But
Yeah,
I am using now Microsoft Foundry, but without any line of any code line using code, only natural language. So basic that is more extensibility, more adaptive for a no code user. But you can build enterprise solution and scale with different language model, with different workflow, and also you can combine different knowledge source as well. So that is interesting. Expand your stack or connection, something like that. You can use MCP server. You can connect, something like that.
Very interesting. I wasn't aware of that. That's my few hours tomorrow now playing around with that. That's fantastic.
Yeah, yeah, it's very fantastic, Mark. So I am trying and learning about this part because I honestly, I think it's very, very powerful and interesting to do the same with no code, you know?
Yeah, for sure. And even for learning as you're building them out, you've been able to look at the code as well to learn as well. It's really good.
Exactly. Thank you.
Yes, I thought of that. No, so Gabriel, thank you very much for giving the people
You're
with
welcome.
low knowledge about coding the comforts of using Foundry. Yeah,
Yeah, thank
nice
you.
job.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
Thank you. This next one, I think, is Joseph. Are you present something?
Oh, okay. So let me just quickly do something real quick. Share screen, entire screen, screen, this one. Okay.
yeah,
Let me know when my screen is
yeah.
up.
There you go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I was trying to look up something recently, and I came across this very interesting new certification, though still in beta. Right. So I decided to explore it. Microsoft 365 is actually AB 900, and the Microsoft 365 certified Copilot and agent administration fundamentals. So I'm sure that the content of the course looks very attractive to me, and I'm sure to many people. Um, because if I look at it, though looking very short, but heavily loaded, when you go through it, it actually explains a lot about what Mark was already talking about. So if you look at this, you just have like these two here. This one, the first one is actually going to explore M365 administration. In my mind, this is actually something to look out for because for me, the MS102 did not really address some of the simple content, simple concepts that people would actually love to learn about. But this actually came into analyzing zero trust, which is likely coming from 7 SC SC300, and then implement zero trust. This were very detailed, and then to explore identity, authentication, and all of that. M365 core services and admin console. So it went a lot deep into it. So it's looking a lot abstract. Then if you come to protect and govern Microsoft data, which is in line with what Mark has earlier explained and even more detailed. So I jumped that. I came to this myself because I see that this particular one here, the Explore M365 Copilot and Agent Administration, is quite detailed, right? So I went in here myself and I see again a lot right? So coming here, I think I just finished this today. Maybe like 3 or 4 days I've started and I was writing about it, which I'm also going to show us today, the article I've just been able to put together. So if you look at this Explore M365 Copilot agent, so these documents went really deep into the content that it actually carries here, right? So from what I gathered here, I just thought to share something with the viewers and the member of the teams the core here. So I'm dragging this my guy here to the screen. So I was able to look at this. Let me just zoom in a bit. So I tried to put it together, the contents of the very first module that explains the Explore M365 copilots and agents, right? So if you come in here, what is M365 Copilot? A generative AI assistant that is built directly into. So what makes it interesting is the fact that you can use it right within your Word, your Excel, your conventional application. So it's not looking like you are going to be learning afresh anymore. So it's just going to be, you're not going to be seeing Copilot as an alien add-on to your application because it just flows with the whole of the thing. So so doing that, it can only use data the signed in user is authorized to access. And I think we try to look at this, not like we're trying to overflow it this time. We try to explain it in terms of the files, in terms of the emails, the chat, the calendar item, the content are connected through the Microsoft Graph. So Microsoft Graph is actually holding everything, knowing that information. That's why you could stay in Outlook and query what you have in Teams, for example, and you can get the output. So this ensures that responses are secure, the fact that it's signed in user and the permission that the user has. So content sprawl has to be taken care of, which we have addressed earlier. So does all of that. So Copilot works by combining these three core elements. One is the graph for secure data access, which is now speaking to what level of access does the user, the signed-in user, have on the content is trying to explore. And then there's an orchestration service that actually manages the prompts and the business rules, right? And then you talk about the large language model, the LLM, that's actually what generates that generates natural intelligent responses. So together they actually deliver powerful productivity gain while also trying to introduce important governance and security, then compliance. So talking about Microsoft Graph, right? So Microsoft Graph is actually like the backbone of the M365 Copilot's intelligence. So it unifies the data for the user. So when emails, when files, when meetings, and all of that, and then it gives Copilot a connected understanding of people, the project, the task, and all of that. So Microsoft Graph is actually doing a lot when it comes to the smartness of Copilot. Then we talk about the large language model, which is like another component to be considered. So we serve as like the reasoning engine for the whole thing. Then we talk about the apps having Copilot built into apps. Copilot, then the orchestration service is actually very important because it actually controls, the center of 365 Copilot. So it manages how prompts actually goes to the Microsoft Graph and the LLM works together to produce secure and useful results for the user. So we've also looked at the life cycle management somehow in Mark's presentation. So remember this conversation we're having is in line with the AB 900 content, right? So it's not like we're trying to repeat what we've presented in the previous session. I was trying to see, since the exam is new, if anyone would be interested to go look into the content, I'm sure that definitely is going to be useful. So but what happens is the life cycle of prompts comes by user prompting, there's grounding, Copilot enriches the prompts with contextual data, just so that it's not using like things like keywords alone to search for answer, right? And then pull from the Microsoft Graph. with an advanced indexing, then generate your response for you. The one very important thing is that data is encrypted in transit, and only information the user is authorized to use can the user make use of. So authorized to use, authorized deliberately or by mistake, right? So if data is available to a user because you are not aware that it's available, like the group that was mentioned in the last presentation, everyone except external user. What that means is that everyone in the organization can have access to certain, but unless you have to be careful about data oversharing. So now we've talked about M365 Copilot. So in the context of the exam, you'll be seeing that they've tried to dive into how agents is different from Copilot. So agents in M365 are like smart AI parts so that help user work faster, more efficiently. Um, so they actually automate routine tasks and then answer questions. One very good thing or one thing to mention here is that they are actually built for specific tasks. Now there are types of agents. There are pre-built agents, which are like what you have on the SharePoint that was, looked into earlier. So you have you have the pre-built, not the SharePoint, and you have the pre-built, which are like when you check your M365, you see like the prompt code, you have like the writing code, the researcher agent, and then the analyst. You see them there from Microsoft. So there are agents that Microsoft or uh, third-party vendor, but they must be approved. And of course, there are rigorous steps for this to be, go through before approvals are done. And then there are ready-made, so pre-built, then ready-made. And ready-made SharePoint agents are those agents that you see, ready-made agents and SharePoint site that are AI powered to that are integrated with the site itself. So agent for every business user. So of course, every business user can decide to, without technical knowledge from what Marcus just presented, right? Where you see everyday business person trying to build agent without knowing how to write codes. So low code or no code kind of way of building, in short, no code kind of building agent for everyday business user. Then you have like the advanced one that unlike the simplified agent for everyday user, so advanced agents require people have programming skills to be able to look into that. And that's when we look at the Foundry just a while ago. It was really interesting because even though you don't have an idea about coding, you can actually use like a no-code way to build using natural language, and then you have option to look into the backend to see how the code is actually built. And that's what we appreciated in that presentation because that would also now serve as a way to learn, right, how to use, how to code, right? It should be like a very, very interesting thing, just like what Gabriel has rightly shown in the, yeah. So you can now start comparing Copilot licensing because in short, one of the things that drew my attention to this, to writing this is because I see that licensing is very important because it has to do with money and people need to really understand what they are paying for and what feature they can have access to. So there's a free Copilot chat experience, so which allow basic conversational AI, but does not access your organization data. So we must mention this because once you have business accounts or you have like a family package, you would have access to Copilot when you sign into your account, and that can only access that does not have access to your what's it called, your organization data. So it's just the Copilot chat basically for you to have like chat experience, and basically that goes into the web and Bing, right, specifically to source information to give responses to what you're trying to, but you cannot have access to your office, what's it called, your organization information or data, right? So the free Copilot chat experience. So everyone who uses M365 business package or enterprise package will have access to the Copilot chat, just in case you've not considered looking at that. Now, there is Microsoft 365 Copilot paid plan, right? So this actually integrates Copilot across your Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Outlook, Teams. Then it grounds responses using Microsoft Graph from the level of access the user has, which can cut across all applications, right? So now there is Copilot Studio license also, which allows every everyday business user and developer to create, customize, and manage Copilot agents. So these agents might rely on or on included capacity package and consumption-based credits, depending on how extensively they use it, right? Now, on top of these plans, one thing one needs to be aware of is now there are two options here. Yeah. So one is that you can decide to go by monthly commitment. That's to say that you're just going to pay for it $30 per user, right? So we provide a predictable cost, right? And it's straightforward to understand that, okay, if I'm having 3 users, that means I'm going to be paying $90, right? And then just multiply by the number of people you have, for instance. So you can actually predict that. But if you don't want to go for the monthly plan, you can as well do pay as you go. And now the interesting thing about this that we should be aware of is that unlike the monthly licensing, then the pay as you go bills organization only from actual Copilot usage. So every prompt is or interaction is metered and charged through their Azure subscription. So this would actually need emphasis because I did not truly understand how the pay go happens with the Copilot usage until I came across this course and I was trying to study it. So I see we need to understand how this is. So now the notes just before I wrap up is that only business and enterprise tenants with Copilot Studio capacity can build agents because if you see family plan gives you access to the Copilot charts, right? But if you're talking about building agents, right, you need to start talking about business, which is which cut across here the word business standard, business premium, right? And then enterprise talk about the E licenses. And F license also gives you, I think education also will give you access to the agent. I'm not very sure about education, but I'm thinking that it should be among it. So personal or family, you cannot use it. So this is one thing that we should also consider. So Microsoft 365 Copilot monthly license. So the monthly license model for M365 works like the usual add-on that you have, like I mentioned. So you pay a fixed price per user each month, no matter how. Now, the confusing thing about, what requires attention about this is if you assign the license to anyone, just like a regular base license, whether they use it or they don't, then they're going to get charged, right? So you really need to be spooling the report to consider Copilot usage, right, to see how much your users are adopting it. So while trying to roll it out, you first of all have to go through processes to really understand the usage in your organization. So if it offers predictable budgets, but requires thorough planning to ensure that the right employee receives the licenses because of course it's not cheap, it's expensive. So risk of over licensing is there. So without proper monitoring, organization can waste money on users who are not actively using Copilots. Maybe seasonal staff who comes in and goes, or contractors only need it for a short period of time. So if you are if you are going for Copilot monthly plan, then you should have your eye on regular license audits to help you remove any inactive user or prevent unnecessary spending. That makes it look nice if you have people who occasionally use Copilot because costs are paid alongside other Azure subscription. It's easier to use Paygo so that you can even set up alert and budgets for it. So admin get the take cost tracking and budget alerts, but they also need to monitor usage very closely without without oversight because cost can really spike immediately with co-pilots going by the pay-go option. So such when a project team uses Copilot heavily for like a week, a lot can really happen. So there are good side and downside of both. We are going for the fixed rates for your users, and if you are going for pay as you go option. So, but these are just the content of that, just one of the module I'll call it. So I really encourage our listeners to check out the course, and I feel that we have a lot to learn. So as time progresses, I hope to be able to look into, like I've just started the introduction to the basic administrative task for M365 Copilot. I will really be very passionate about studying this to understand exactly what is there. But if you go before me, I'll be happy to read your post on LinkedIn, just like I've done one today. So yes, Frank and everyone on the call, that's all I have for us today. Thank you very much.
Very good. We just
Thanks,
hit
Joseph.
Cool.
the 2 hour mark again.
Sure.
That was a good one, Joseph. And I've been playing a lot with Copilot recently, and
Yeah.
I just did an integration with Copilot and Power Automate. I created a flow whereby every meetings I go on my Teams meeting, the Copilot redirects and do a transcript down to my email and save a doc on my OneDrive. Currently, the process was crazy, but it's cool. If I would advise anyone on Copilot, if you're not an admin, shouldn't be for everybody. That's what I would advise because it's kind of expensive, man.
Yeah, definitely. All right, thank you, Dio.
Amazing.
You have to become an MVP and get it free.
I think the MVP journey for me, I don't think it's something I want to go anymore because I get so hyped up sometimes and I do a lot of giving out to more after some months because of what I'm into, not only tech, I get takeaway sometimes and I just go blank for like 6 months and not available because I'm doing the other part of me. So coming back again, it's not. I'll just keep giving out the way I can.
Yeah. Very good.
Yeah.
So, guys, I'm going to end the live recording, and thanks everybody for great presentations. Great start back to the new year. So, happy New Year to everyone. We'll be back here again next week at the same time. So, thank you.
Thank
Thanks
you,
all.
guys.
Take care. Bye.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Bye.
Sure, bye.
Thank you.